Captain Amelia Voss stood at the reinforced viewport of the Resilience, humanity's last functioning dreadnought, watching Earth burn below. The planet that had once been blue and green now glowed with the sickly orange of atmospheric fires and the harsh violet of alien energy weapons. After 100 years of war, this was what remained of home. "Captain," came the voice of Lieutenant Commander Chen from behind her. "Admiral Morrison is requesting your immediate presence in the war room." Amelia didn't turn around. She couldn't. Not yet. Below them, New Geneva, one of the last human strongholds, was falling. Streams of refugees fled through underground tunnels while overhead, the hegemony's bioships descended like metallic locusts, their pulsing energy cores casting eerie shadows across the devastated landscape. "Tell me, Chen," she said quietly, her breath fogging the reinforced glass. "Do you remember what Earth looked like before the war?" "I'm only 37, Captain. I was born in the deep shelters of Luna Base 7. Of course." Amelia sometimes forgot that most of her crew had never seen an unburned sky. She was 56, old enough to remember fragments from her childhood, blue oceans that didn't glow with radioactive algae, forests that grew naturally instead of being carefully cultivated in underground hydroponic farms. "The Admiral is waiting, ma'am." "I know." Amelia finally turned away from the viewport. "Tell me, Chen, what do you know about the hegemony's first assault?" The younger officer looked puzzled but answered dutifully. "The historical records say they arrived in 2087, claiming our solar system for their expanding empire. When humanity refused to submit to their biotechnological integration protocols, they began what they called aggressive planetary conditioning. That's the sanitized version." Amelia walked past him toward the war room. "I was 6 years old when the first bioships entered our atmosphere. They didn't come to conquer, they came to harvest. Human neurological patterns, our genetic diversity, our creative consciousness. To them, we weren't people. We were raw materials for their collective intelligence network." They walked through the corridors of the Resilience, past damage control teams and exhausted soldiers. The ship bore the scars of countless battles, plasma burns along the bulkheads, hastily welded patches where hull breaches had been sealed, and the ever-present hum of overworked life support systems. "Why are you telling me this, Captain?" Amelia paused at the entrance to the war room. "Because in about 10 minutes, Admiral Morrison is going to ask me to do something that will either save our species or damn what's left of it to extinction. And I want someone to remember why." The war room doors slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing Admiral Sarah Morrison hunched over a holographic display of the Sol system. Red indicators showed hegemony fleet positions. They were everywhere. Mars had fallen 3 months ago. The outer colonies had been dark for over a year. Only Earth remained, and barely. "Amelia," Morrison said without looking up, "how familiar are you with the Quantum Resonance Engine project?" Every person in the room, senior staff from across the remaining human fleet, turned to look at her. Amelia felt the weight of their stares. The Curie project was classified beyond top secret. Only a handful of people in the entire human command structure even knew it existed. "I know it's a theoretical weapon system," Amelia said carefully. "Something about manipulating quantum entanglement on a macro scale." Morrison's laugh was bitter. "Theoretical. Right." She gestured to the hologram, and the display changed to show a massive structure hidden within the asteroid belt. "The quantum resonance engine has been fully operational for 3 years. We built it inside Ceres, using the asteroid's mass as both camouflage and raw material for the quantum field generators." The image showed a technological marvel, a spherical structure nearly 50 kilometers in diameter, its surface covered with geometric patterns that seemed to shift and writhe as if alive. Energy conduits snaked through the asteroid's modified interior, all leading to a central chamber where space itself seemed to bend and twist. "What does it do?" asked Captain Torres of the Defiance. Morrison's expression grew grim. "It can rewrite the quantum signature of matter within a radius of approximately 4 astronomical units. Everything within that sphere, planets, ships, people, would have their quantum entanglement patterns scrambled and randomized. The room fell silent. Amelia felt a chill run down her spine as the implications became clear. "You're talking about a weapon that could kill everything in the inner solar system," she said slowly. "Not kill," Morrison corrected. "Erase. Their quantum patterns would be so thoroughly scrambled that they would simply cease to exist in any meaningful sense. No atoms, no energy, no information. Just nothing." Captain Torres stood up so fast his chair toppled backward. "You're insane. You can't seriously be considering. We've run every simulation, fought every battle, tried every strategy." Morrison's voice rose to cut him off. "The hegemony isn't just winning, they're absorbing us. Every human they capture gets integrated into their biotechnological collective. Our thoughts, our memories, our entire consciousness becomes part of their hive mind. They're not just conquering our territory, they're consuming our very identity as a species." She gestured to another display showing the progression of human-held territory over the past century. It was like watching a cancer spread in reverse, a slow, inexorable shrinking until only the tiniest fraction remained. In 18 months, maybe less, there won't be any free humans left. The hegemony will have absorbed everyone, taken everything that makes us human and integrated it into their collective consciousness. We'll be gone, but we'll still be aware of our extinction, trapped forever in their neural network. "So you want to commit suicide on a cosmic scale," Torres said. "Take them with us in some kind of murder-suicide pact." "No." Morrison's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "I want to give the survivors a chance." The hologram changed again, showing star charts of nearby systems. Dozens of red dots marked the locations of human ships and small colonies that had fled beyond the hegemony's immediate reach. There are nearly 2 million humans scattered across 47 different star systems. Colony ships, deep space research stations, mining operations that were far enough away to escape the initial invasion. If we activate the QRE, if we erase both the hegemony fleet and ourselves, those survivors will have a chance to rebuild. To start over without the threat of absorption. "And if the hegemony has reinforcements coming from outside the affected radius?" asked Commander Price. "Then we'll have bought those survivors time to run farther, to hide better, to maybe find a way to fight back that we never could." Morrison's shoulders sagged with exhaustion. "It's not a perfect solution. It's barely even a solution at all. But it's the only choice we have left." Amelia stared at the holographic display showing the QRE installation. "Why are you telling us this? If the decision has been made." "Because someone has to go to Ceres and activate the system manually," Morrison interrupted. "The quantum resonance field interferes with all forms of remote communication once the startup sequence begins. Someone has to be there, in person, to initialize the final sequence." The room fell silent again. Amelia understood now why Morrison had wanted her here, why she'd asked about her knowledge of the project. "You want me to fly into the asteroid belt, board a station that's about to become the epicenter of a quantum annihilation field, and manually trigger a weapon that will erase everything within 4 astronomical units?" "Yes." "Including myself?" "Yes." Amelia closed her eyes. She thought about her daughter, Sarah, who had volunteered for a deep space colony mission 15 years ago, and was now somewhere beyond the Centauri system. She thought about her husband, Marcus, who had died defending Luna Base 7 3 years ago. She thought about the 6-year-old girl who had watched the sky burn as alien ships blotted out the sun. "How long do I have to decide?" Morrison checked her chrono. "The hegemony's final assault on Earth begins in 36 hours. If we're going to do this, you need to launch within 12 hours to reach Ceres in time. And the crew of the QRE station? Skeleton crew of 12. All volunteers. They'd been there for 3 years, knowing this moment might come." Morrison's voice was steady, but Amelia could see the pain in her eyes. "Dr. Sarah Kim is the project director. You remember her from the Titan Research Station?" Amelia nodded. Sarah Kim, brilliant, dedicated, and one of the few people who truly understood quantum mechanics well enough to build something like the QRE. If anyone could make this work, it would be her. "I need to speak with my crew," Amelia said finally. Of course. But Amelia. Morrison reached out and touched her arm. I know what I'm asking. I know what this means. If there were any other way. There isn't. Amelia's voice was flat, matter-of-fact. We both know there isn't. 4 hours later, Amelia stood in the Resilience's main hangar bay addressing her senior staff. She had told them everything: the Curie project, the mission parameters, the fact that it was a one-way trip. I need 5 volunteers, she concluded. Pilot, engineer, weapons specialist, medical officer, and communications. This is not an order. This is not a duty assignment. This is asking you to volunteer to die for the chance that humanity might survive somewhere else. The silence stretched for nearly a minute. Then Lieutenant Commander Chen stepped forward. I volunteer for communications, Captain. Chen, you don't. Captain, with respect, I've never seen Earth without fire in the sky. I've never breathed unfiltered air or felt natural sunlight. But maybe the colonies will have that chance. Maybe someone's children will get to see what we've only heard about in stories. Chief Engineer Rodriguez was next. I volunteer for engineering. My daughter is on the New Horizon colony ship, somewhere past Wolf 359. If there's a chance this gives her a future. One by one, they stepped forward. Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka for pilot. Dr. James Morrison, the Admiral's younger brother, for medical. Commander Lisa Park for weapons and tactical. Each had their reasons, their own connections to the human diaspora scattered across the stars. Are you sure about this? Amelia asked them. Once we launch, there's no coming back. No last-minute rescue. No changing our minds. Captain, said Dr. Morrison, my brother once told me that command means being responsible for making choices no one should have to make. Today, we choose to give humanity a tomorrow, even if we won't be there to see it. 6 hours later, they were aboard the fast attack ship Quantum's Edge, racing through the asteroid belt toward Ceres. The ship was designed for stealth and speed, its hull coated with adaptive camouflage that made it nearly invisible to most scanning systems. It was also small, barely large enough for a crew of 6 and the specialized equipment they would need. Amelia sat in the captain's chair, watching the asteroids drift past on the main screen. Somewhere behind them, Earth was fighting its final battle. Long-range communications had gone dark 3 hours ago, which could mean anything from communication equipment failure to total planetary defeat. Captain, Tanaka called from the pilot's station. I'm picking up the Ceres beacon. ETA 47 minutes. Any sign of hegemony activity? Negative. They seem to be focused on the inner system. The asteroid belt appears clear. That was good news, at least. The hegemony had never shown much interest in the outer system. Their bioships were designed for planetary assault and integration, not deep space operations. It was one of the few advantages humanity had managed to maintain. Chen, any word from the Curie station? Receiving their automated beacon, but no active communications. Could be maintaining communication silence as per protocol. Amelia nodded. The Curie station had been designed to operate under complete stealth conditions. For 3 years, the 12-person crew had lived inside a hollowed-out asteroid, maintaining the most powerful weapon ever conceived while staying completely invisible to the enemy. Captain, Dr. Morrison's voice came from behind her. I've been reviewing the technical specifications for the Curie. There's something you should know about the activation sequence. What kind of something? The quantum resonance field doesn't activate instantaneously. There's a 7-hour initialization period where the field gradually builds to full strength. During that time, anyone within approximately 50,000 kilometers of Ceres will experience increasing levels of quantum degradation. Meaning? Meaning we'll feel ourselves being erased, bit by bit, over the course of 7 hours. The bridge fell silent. Amelia had expected death, but she hadn't expected it to be slow. Is there any way to accelerate the process? Dr. Kim's research notes suggest that it might be possible to create a localized field collapse that would accelerate the process within the station itself. Essentially, a quick death instead of a slow one. How quick? Nearly instantaneous, once the localized collapse begins. Amelia considered this. And the main field? Would that affect the overall weapon's effectiveness? No. The localized collapse would only affect the station itself. The main quantum resonance field would continue building to full strength and activation. Then that's what we'll do. 30 minutes later, Ceres filled their forward screen. The asteroid looked perfectly natural from the outside, a rotating mass of rock and ice, indistinguishable from thousands of others in the belt. But as they approached the concealed docking port, Amelia could see the subtle signs of human modification. Solar collection arrays hidden in what looked like natural crystal formations. Sensor clusters disguised as mineral deposits. And deep beneath the surface, the greatest weapon humanity had ever built. Ceres Station, this is Captain Amelia Voss aboard the Quantum's Edge, requesting permission to dock. The response came immediately. Captain Voss, this is Dr. Sarah Kim. We've been expecting you. Base 7 is ready for your arrival. The docking was smooth, accomplished through a hidden port that opened like a flower to reveal the ship's berth. As they descended into the asteroid's interior, Amelia was amazed by what she saw. The humans hadn't just hollowed out Ceres, they had transformed it into a technological marvel. The walls were lined with quantum field generators, their crystalline surfaces pulsing with contained energy. Maintenance corridors snaked throughout the structure, allowing access to every component of the massive system. And at the center of it all, visible through transparent aluminum barriers, was the QRE itself, a sphere of twisted spacetime where reality seemed to fold in on itself. Dr. Sarah Kim was waiting for them at the airlock, and Amelia was struck by how much the woman had changed. 3 years of isolation in an asteroid had left their mark. Kim was thinner, more pale, and her eyes held the distant look of someone who had spent too much time staring into the fundamental nature of reality. Sarah, Amelia said as she stepped off the ship. How are you holding up? As well as can be expected, Kim replied. We've been monitoring the situation in the inner system. I'm sorry about Earth. Amelia nodded grimly. How long until you can activate the system? The QRE has been on standby for the past 72 hours. We can begin the initialization sequence at any time. But Amelia... Kim's expression grew troubled. There's something you need to know. Something we discovered during the final testing phase. What kind of something? The quantum resonance field is more powerful than we originally calculated. The effective radius isn't 4 astronomical units, it's closer to 6. That means the field will reach beyond Mars, possibly as far as the outer asteroid belt. Amelia felt a chill. How far beyond Mars? Far enough to affect some of the deep space observation posts. Far enough to catch a few of the slower colony ships that might still be in transit through the outer system. The implications were staggering. Instead of saving 2 million humans scattered across the galaxy, they might be condemning additional thousands to the same oblivion they were planning for Earth. How many? Amelia asked quietly. We estimate between 50 and 80,000 additional casualties, based on known ship positions and colony placements. Amelia closed her eyes. 50 to 80,000 people who might otherwise survive, erased along with Earth and the hegemony fleet. The moral calculus was staggering. Was the certain salvation of the distant colonies worth the potential destruction of those closer to home? Is there any way to reduce the field strength? Yes, but it would also reduce the effectiveness against the hegemony's main fleet. We might not get all of them. How many would survive? Unknown. Possibly a significant number, depending on their fleet composition and positioning. Amelia found herself facing an impossible choice. Full power meant erasing additional innocent humans, but ensuring the complete destruction of the hegemony threat. Reduced power might save those additional humans but could leave enough of the enemy alive to eventually track down and absorb the distant colonies. I need to see the full tactical analysis, she said finally. Kim led them deeper into the station, through corridors lined with quantum field generators and monitoring equipment. The 12-person crew moved through their duties with the quiet efficiency of people who had long ago made peace with their fate. They were scientists, engineers, and technicians who had volunteered for a 3-year tour of duty knowing it would likely end in their deaths. The main control room was a marvel of human engineering, banks of quantum computers monitoring the field generators, holographic displays showing the real-time status of space-time itself, and at the center of it all, the activation console that would trigger humanity's final gambit. "Show me the expanded field calculations," Amelia said. The holographic display came to life, showing the Sol system with the projected quantum resonance field overlaid in translucent red. The sphere was enormous, encompassing not just Earth and Mars but reaching well into the asteroid belt and even touching the edge of Jupiter's orbital path. These 3 observation posts would be lost. Kim pointed to flashing indicators. And these 7 ships, a mix of research vessels and slow-moving colony transports. And if we reduce power? The red sphere contracted slightly. This configuration would save most of the additional casualties, but red dots appeared throughout the sphere, indicating projected hegemony ship positions. These 15 bioships would likely survive. Our intelligence suggests that's enough for them to continue their pursuit of the distant colonies. How long until they could rebuild their forces? Unknown. Could be decades, could be centuries. The hegemony's reproduction cycles are still poorly understood. Amelia stared at the display, weighing the lives of 80,000 against the potential extinction of 2 million. It was an impossible choice, but command meant making impossible choices. "There's a third option," Dr. Morrison said quietly from behind her. Everyone turned to look at him. "The QRE doesn't have to be a single activation. We could trigger it in stages. Start with the reduced field to save the additional casualties. Then once we've confirmed the hegemony ships in that area are destroyed, expand to full power to catch any survivors." Kim shook her head. "The field generators can't be reconfigured once the initialization begins. It's full power or reduced power, not both." "But what if we had 2 systems?" "2 systems?" Morrison moved to the holographic display and began manipulating the controls. "Ceres isn't the only large asteroid in the belt. What if we had built a second QRE installation?" "We didn't," Kim said flatly. "No, but we could repurpose some of the equipment. The field generators are modular, right? We could relocate enough components to create a second, smaller installation with a more limited range." Kim was quiet for a long moment, her mind clearly racing through the technical possibilities. "It would be incredibly dangerous. Moving active quantum field generators while the main system is in initialization, the risk of cascade failure would be enormous." "What kind of cascade failure?" Amelia asked. "The kind where both systems destabilize and create an expanding quantum void that wouldn't stop at 6 astronomical units. The kind where we accidentally erase half the galaxy." The room fell silent. Outside the control room windows, they could see the other members of the QRE station crew going about their duties, unaware that their leaders were discussing the possibility of universal annihilation. "What's the probability of cascade failure?" Amelia asked. "Impossible to calculate precisely. Somewhere between 10 and 90%, depending on variables we can't predict." "And if we do nothing? If we just activate the system at full power?" "Guaranteed success in erasing the hegemony threat. Guaranteed death for the additional 80,000 humans in the extended field." "And if we activate at reduced power?" "Guaranteed survival for those 80,000, but potentially allowing the hegemony to survive in sufficient numbers to continue their pursuit of the colonies." Amelia turned away from the display and walked to the observation windows. Outside, she could see the twisted sphere of the QRE core, where space-time itself was held in a delicate balance. In a few hours, that sphere would expand to encompass everything she had ever known, erasing not just the hegemony but Earth itself, along with every trace of human civilization in the home system. "How much time do we have to decide?" "The hegemony's final assault on Earth began 6 hours ago," Kim replied. "Based on their previous patterns, they'll have complete orbital control within 18 hours. If we're going to activate the QRE, it needs to be soon. And how long to implement Dr. Morrison's plan? If we started immediately? 12 hours to relocate enough equipment, Another 6 hours to establish the secondary field generators, then 7 hours for the initialization sequence. 25 hours total. That's too long. Not necessarily. Chen spoke up from where he had been monitoring communications equipment. I'm detecting scattered resistance broadcasts from Earth. The defensive networks are still active in some regions. They might be able to hold out longer than 18 hours. How much longer? Unknown. But Captain, I'm also detecting something else. Long-range sensor sweeps from the direction of Alpha Centauri. Everyone in the room froze. Alpha Centauri was where some of the largest human colony ships had fled in the early years of the war. What kind of sensor sweeps? Amelia asked. Quantum resonance scanners. Very sophisticated, very powerful. And they're heading this way. Kim moved to the sensor station and began analyzing the incoming data. After several minutes, she looked up with an expression of amazement. It's a human fleet. A large one. They're using quantum entanglement communication to coordinate their approach, and their technology. It's at least 50 years ahead of anything we have. How is that possible? The colonies? Morrison breathed. The distant colonies. They've had a century to develop without constant warfare, without the hegemony breathing down their necks. They've been advancing while we've been just trying to survive. The holographic display shifted to show the approaching fleet, dozens of ships, their designs unlike anything in the Earth Defense Force database. Sleek, powerful vessels that seemed to bend space around them as they moved. How long until they arrive? Amelia asked. At their current speed, approximately 36 hours. But Captain, they're decelerating. They're not coming in at full attack speed, they're coming to help. Can we contact them? Chen's fingers flew over his console. I'm trying to establish a quantum entanglement link, but the distance is still too great for reliable communication. Keep trying. In the meantime, we need to make a decision about the QRE. Amelia turned back to the tactical display. If the colonial fleet arrives in 36 hours, we might not need the quantum resonance engine at all. Or they might arrive to find the hegemony has completely absorbed Earth and gained access to all our defensive systems and technologies. Kim pointed out. That could be exactly what the hegemony is waiting for, reinforcements from the colonies walking into a trap. It was a valid concern. The hegemony's absorption process was thorough. They didn't just capture humans, they gained access to all their knowledge, skills, and technological capabilities. If they completed their absorption of Earth before the colonial fleet arrived, they would gain a century of wartime technological development in addition to whatever they learned from the absorbed human minds. We need more information, Amelia decided. Chen, how long until you can establish reliable communication with the colonial fleet? Maybe 6 hours, maybe 12. The quantum entanglement network is complex at this distance. And how long can Earth's defenses hold out? Unknown. The resistance broadcasts are sporadic and often cut off mid-transmission. Amelia made her decision. We proceed with Dr. Morrison's plan, the dual QRE system. But we modify the timeline. We spend the next 6 hours trying to establish communication with the colonial fleet and monitoring Earth's situation. If Earth falls or if the colonial fleet confirms they need us to clear the way, we activate both systems simultaneously. The cascade failure risk, Kim began, is a risk we have to take. If there's even a chance we can save those 80,000 additional lives while still ensuring the hegemony's destruction, we have to try. Kim nodded slowly. I'll begin preparations for relocating the field generator components. But Amelia, you need to understand, if cascade failure occurs, it won't be a quick death. The expanding quantum void would unravel space-time itself. Reality would simply cease. Not just in the system, but potentially throughout a significant portion of the galaxy. How significant? Anywhere from a few dozen light-years to several thousand. Amelia felt the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. Not just the lives of everyone in the Sol system, not just the 80,000 humans in the extended field, but potentially millions of worlds across hundreds of light-years of space. Begin the preparations, she said quietly.